Happy Thursday and welcome to another episode of Hornets Daily, your one-stop shop for all things Charlotte Hornets. As always, represented by the good people over at FanArc, and I'm your host, Vance Ballard, but you know by now you can call me VB. I want to thank everybody for joining us out there, watching along with us today. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, leave a like and a comment down in the comment section. You know how much we enjoy seeing you guys interact, hearing what you think about what's going on the show as we continue to grow and build this Hornets Daily family here on the program. Now, it's September the 18th. It's still that slow period in the NBA. Training camp, preseason are right around the corner. Regular season not that far away. But we do have some things on the docket for today. We've got three potential players to watch, maybe some more under-the-radar type of guys on this Hornets roster. I'll tell you who they are on the program today. We're going to take a visit to our good friend, the old rumor mill. You know, it does not sleep this time of year, stays hot and heavy. We'll talk about the newest trade featuring the Charlotte Hornets. And it looks like Jeff Peterson's vision is finally starting to become a little more clear. It's starting to look like there is a, quote, light at the end of the tunnel, for lack of a better description. We'll talk a little bit about that today as well. And then we're going to wrap things up with a couple more of Colin Keen's marquee wins that we talked about yesterday. I told you we'd go through the rest of them as the week progresses. We'll add a couple more in there today to end the show. Now, you know we don't beat around the bush here on Hornets Daily. We like to dive head first right into the program, and that's exactly what we'll do again here today. Now, we've talked all summer about the Hornets stars, LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller. We've mentioned Miles Bridges. We've thrown Con Knippel's name in there several times. We've talked about the center position. But there are a few guys we have not spoken about or kind of going under the radar a little bit that we have yet to give the proper amount of shine potentially for what they could do for this roster going forward. We know that Miller and Ball, of course, will get the majority of the focus on the court and off the court as well. But there's a few guys that Zach Roberts thinks could still slip under the radar and make a big impact for this Hornets team this year. He's got three in particular in mind he thinks we should keep an eye on. It's Liam McNeely, Grant Williams, and Tre Mann, and I'm inclined to agree with this assessment. All three of those guys are guys we've talked about on this show, guys we've mentioned and brought up and hinted at all of the potential impact they could have this season going forward. I've made a case myself for Liam McNeely playing an important role several times, as a matter of fact. I've even gone as far on this program to say there's a world where he earns his way into not winning the Rookie of the Year. I haven't gone that far, but he does. I do see a world where he at least gets his name thrown in the conversation with his play and the minutes he's going to earn this season. I think his athletic ability, his rebounding ability off the bench should be huge for the Hornets' second unit, and barring if there are any injuries or any reason that he may need to slip in and start a few games, I think he's going to work his way into that type of player as well, so he could be very important for this team going forward. Now, he's not the shooter that Con Knippel is when he was drafted. We know that, but he is much better than average when it comes to shooting. We saw that in his performances out in Summer League. He kind of outperformed all of the other rookies in the class during the 2 games that he was on the floor, so he could be if he can take a step forward on the defensive end of the floor, McNeely could really see himself work his way into a nice role here in the Hornets rotation, and he could end up having a much larger impact than people think as a rookie. Tre Mann, that's also somebody we've talked about several times on the show. He's also somebody now who brings some expectations with him coming off of his back injury, having just signed a 3-year, $24 million extension. So he is going to be expected to play a certain role and to perform up to a certain standard. As you know, he was playing out of his mind before he got hurt last year. He was averaging over 13 points a game and was picking up steam in the 6th man of the year conversation. I'm sure he'll be expected and is more than capable of getting back to that level. His minutes may slightly take a dip this year just because of the log jam that is now the guard room in Charlotte, something we've again talked about in abundance on the program here. But Charles Lee's familiar with his game. He's comfortable with him. Tre Mann now has that sense of job security, having just signed that extension and so everyone knows what impact he can make on the court, so there will be minutes carved out for him just as a leader on the second unit or playing when LaMelo needs some rest or something like that. He's also a very nice security blanket should somebody in that guard room go down, whether it be LaMelo, Colin Sexton, whoever it may be. If there is an injury in that room, then there is a guy like Trey Mann to step up and make everyone feel a little more comfortable knowing how capable he is. As you remember, Grant Williams was the third name mentioned on this roster, and he's likely been probably the most forgotten about player so far by Hornets fans, and I'm not saying that's bad about him. It's just he didn't play very many games last year with the team, and he's been out with a torn ACL all summer. We've seen video of him getting back in the gym, trying to get back on the court, make some basketball plays. We saw one of him dunking not too long ago, but it'll still likely be after Christmas, probably around New Year's, before Williams returns to the court. When he does, however, he could and should have quite a sizable impact on this roster. We know he's a bit undersized, but one of the reasons he was brought into Charlotte is because of his defensive presence at either the 3 or the 4. He can guard up, he can guard down. It doesn't really matter. He's a fantastic defender, but he's also got the ability to help stretch the floor, as he is a serious threat from beyond the arc as well. So you've got to get a guy on him. You've got to get a hand in his face. He'll be able to come out and create some more space and help the rest of the offense flow as well. Getting a two-way player back like Grant Williams and a locker room leader, which we know he is as well, after Christmas break could really be the spark the Hornets need to carry themselves through to the end of the regular season as they try and push themselves into that play-in or even a playoff spot. It could be getting a guy like Grant Williams back could go a long ways towards that goal. Now, we said we'd take a trip out to the old rumor mill today, switching topics on you. That's exactly what we're going to do. It is a full rumor mill visit as we have the entirety of the mock trade to deliver for you today. Ryan Stano at Sports Illustrated thinks that there's a chance the Hornets could make a move to add some more wing depth and shooting very soon. He thinks Nick Smith Jr. and a 2027 first-round pick could be sent to Toronto in return for Grady Dick, a guy who they may be willing to shop. Now, we know that Grady Dick would help the Hornets offensively on that end of the floor. He would quickly increase the shooting percentage overall for the team, as that is kind of something he does best. He's a great shooter from beyond the arc. He's got a good mid-range game, and he's capable of driving to the basket and becoming a legitimate scorer as well. But like several other names that we've mentioned in Hornets mock trades all throughout this summer, he has a tumultuous injury history as well. He hasn't played in 60 games in either of the last 2 seasons. He played 54 last year and just 60 as a rookie. Now, we also know how I feel about giving up first-round picks for injury-prone guys. That's something I've been kind of against all summer long. Just talked about it in the Mitchell Robinson mock draft this week. As a matter of fact, I don't think that someone like Grady Dick is worth a first-round pick because there's just not more room on this roster for for guys who could potentially miss a lion's share of a season with that running that risk already with LaMelo Ball. So I don't know that a first-rounder is worth Grady Dick. Now, I'm aware that this would add depth at the wing position, a spot the Hornets aren't the deepest at per se, but I still just don't know that Grady Dick is worth a first-rounder. The Hornets have guys at that position, not super deep, but they do have Brandon Miller, who Grady Dick is probably not better than. I don't think he's going to be better than Liam McNeely is going to be. I don't think he's better than Con Knipple, so I'm not certain that he would really be an upgrade over any particular player. He would obviously be a better shooter than the Hornets could bring in and plug and play when necessary, but I just don't know how big of a role Grady Dick would actually carve out here in Charlotte. I'm not a huge fan of this move by any means, but I do see how it would add some depth to that wing position if that is the route the Hornets would want to go. Again, it's not my favorite trade. I just don't see a reason to give up a 2027 first-round pick for Grady Dick, somebody who could potentially turn into a guy much better and much more important or much more available than Grady Dick, who again has that injury history. So I don't love this trade, but again, I would understand it if the Hornets did go out and try to add some depth at that wing position. The man who would be in charge of that is Jeff Peterson, as we all know, and he has been working very hard, one of the busiest men in the NBA this offseason, to continue to put forth his vision and build and rebuild this Hornets organization the way he has talked about for the last couple of years, saying that he wants this team to be competitive. He wants them to be a real contender in the East, and going forward, he's trying to win in the long run, build a winning culture here in Charlotte. Now, of course, we'll have to wait and see on the court as that is approaching in just over a month before the regular season. But in all other aspects outside of actually playing the game, it does seem like the Hornets are doing all the right things. Jeff Peterson, Charles Lee making all the right moves, and the vision is finally coming into place, starting to become a little more clear. The Hornets have moved up in the overall NBA power rankings with the additions they've made on the roster. Now, that's not a huge deal, not really important. Again, we've not seen anyone play basketball, but it does mean that people are taking notice to the moves that Jeff Peterson is making. He's getting the credit he deserves. We know he's gotten his flowers from many different outlets, from many different places all throughout the summer. The Hornets also have 24 picks coming up in the next 7 drafts, including 11 first-rounders. So that's more than likely why they're so willing to, or everyone's so willing to mock them trading a first-round pick for pretty much every potential trade target that's been mentioned. I still don't think that makes Grady Dick worth one, just because you have a bunch. But that is why the Hornets are a little more willing to put some assets like a first-round pick into some mock trades and get back guys that, if the situation was different, if the numbers were smaller, probably would not warrant a first-round pick in a trade for them. Charlotte also ranks in a very important spot in the top 10 of both draft capital and money. Now, the draft capital, obviously, I just told you, 24 picks in the next 7 years, 11 first-rounders as well. The money situation is not a current advantage for the Hornets, but there is just the way things are playing out in a few years, they are going to have quite a bit of cap space, barring extensions and things like that, which obviously are going to come. But just the way it sits right now, the Hornets rank in the top 10 of both draft capital and monetary capital, as it looks they have on paper some really some cap space clearing up in the next couple years. That is going to be a significant number and a significant amount here. Now, we know this was never supposed to be a quick rebuild. It's obviously not something that it is something the Hornets have tried to rebuild quickly in the past, and it has flamed out, and it just has not worked. So we know this one, when Jeff Peterson came in, when he brought Charles Lee in, we knew it was going to be a timely process, not a quick rebuild, something they wanted it done the right way. And again, Peterson and Charles Lee have both spent all summer saying the right things, doing the right things, making us think that it is that is still the vision, that it is still going to be a more timely process, but that the Hornets can get built into a productive contending team here in the East. And that vision, with all of the picks now, with all of the things we see on paper, with the roster that has been built, that has brought some optimism and some hope, it's starting to look like that vision is becoming a little more clear, and that Jeff Peterson is the man for the job when it comes to rebuilding this Hornets team. Charles Lee is in the right spot as the head coach to move this team forward as well. So, like I say, the rebuild, we've talked about it a little bit this summer. I don't think it's over, but it does seem to have an end in sight, if that makes sense. The rebuild does seem like it is starting to take place. It's starting to work, and the end may be closer than we think it is with this Hornets team as they try and move themselves out of the bottom of the NBA and into a more contender type role in the Eastern Conference and eventually in the NBA as a whole. Now, what it's going to take to do that, of course, is big wins, marquee statement wins. We've talked about a couple of those yesterday from Colin Keene at Sports Illustrated. He listed 5 earlier in the week. We talked about 2 yesterday. We mentioned a win over the Lakers and the Thunder, both at home early in the season, and the way and how those could project or send the Hornets on a trajectory to success for this season. Keene thinks, however, after November 15th, the next opportunity for the Hornets to put themselves on the radar comes December the 3rd at Madison Square Garden when they face off against the Knicks. Now, we'll talk about two more Colin Keene games today as well, so it'll be the Knicks and then one more here. But the Knicks, as we know, one of the better teams in the East. They made a trip deep into the playoffs last year. They've got a lot of young talent. Jalen Brunson will be there to face off against the Hornets, or at least as of now, he will. So going to Madison Square Garden, getting a win in that big environment would be a massive sign for the Hornets and their progress moving forwards before Christmas. Could have a potential to go get a victory on the road in a tough environment, in a historic environment in Madison Square Garden, which will be a test in itself for the young guys as they try and not let the moment get too big for them. Now, I know it's just a regular season game in December, but the atmosphere is going to be a little bit larger than that. It's going to feel a little bit bigger than just a regular season game in December, like I said. So it'll be important for those. It'll be important to watch how the young guys handle that situation. It'll be important to see how LaMelo and Brandon Miller do up against one of the top teams in their conference. As we know, the Hornets are trying to become a contender in this Eastern Conference, so that will be a good test before Christmas. And then Keene thinks just a little over a month later, on January 17th, when the Hornets will be out on the West Coast, out facing the Golden State Warriors. So, and we all know that even in 2026, with Steph not being he's still the traditional Steph, but with Steph being a little bit older, with Steph continuing to age and wear and tear still being put on his body, even then, at that point, it's still a big win to go out to the Bay, out to Golden State, and win a game in their territory, beating Steph and the Warriors, who are shaping up to be another strong team this season. They're in a good spot to potentially make the playoffs in the Western Conference. So if Charlotte could go out there and steal a win across the country, that would be a huge win the week before the trade deadline, which could add implications or at least intrigue to that game if the Hornets, depending on where the Hornets are as a team and what their thoughts are at the trade deadline, going out and beating a team like the Warriors right before it falls could really add some intrigue to the situation. Could help maybe convince some guys that it wouldn't be that bad to be traded here. Maybe get the mood a little bit better if there is a trade. And it wouldn't make a guy feel like he's just coming to the same old Charlotte that we've heard about over and over again. Also in January, by that time, Grant Williams should be back on the court. He should be rounding back into form, having played a few games under his belt by the 17th, which would obviously help the team tremendously, as they could use another strong defender going out to Golden State and facing up against that high-octane offense. Now, obviously, winning all these games would be the best-case scenario. The four that we've mentioned so far, we've got one more to touch on, which we'll talk about tomorrow. Obviously, winning all of the four would be the best-case scenario, but we know the NBA, and it's a quirky league, and that seems a little bit unlikely. So if Charlotte can go and take a couple of those wins, maybe get two of them, even three, or if it is just one win out of these four, but they don't look awful and they don't get blown out and they don't just seem lost out there on the court, they make it competitive, they keep it close, and it looks like they are making strides in the right direction. That will be a good sign as well. They could really start to make more than just this Hornets fan base start to take notice of what's going on in Charlotte and how they are progressing and eventually going to become a contender in the Eastern Conference. That is something to keep an eye on. That's going to be fun to watch, just like all of these games are. But these four so far we've talked about in particular could have could mean a lot for the Hornets going forwards in the future and their chances of making the play-in or the playoffs this season. Well, that's going to do it for today's show, folks. As always, thanks for watching. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, leave a like and a comment down in the comment section. Let me know what you guys think about some of those marquee wins. What do we think about that Grady Dick trade that I'm not a huge fan of? We'll talk more about it tomorrow right here on an episode of Hornets Daily.